What up, guys? Welcome to another Battlebit video, and this one is going to be kind of a rant slash feedback idea video. It's also a bit of a rebuttal video to my first one. If you didn't see that one, the link should be right here. It talks about one of my biggest issues with Battlebit right now, and that is class balance in Battlebit. In that video, I cover every class having the same gadgets, C4, AP Mines, Claymores, and Suicide C4 hurts the identity of each class. When every class has the same gadgets, which are the primary reason what makes a class what it is, again, makes them less identifiable between the two. One of the reasons why Medic is really just a better assault class right now. You have more weapons, you have the same gadgets, and you can heal yourself, and you're faster. Like, those are all things that you should prioritize as a class that wants to be aggressive and push and kill people. Instead of removing C4 from Medic and only putting C4 on, say, Assault and Engineer, which is what I suggested in the original video, I actually have a new idea, and that's to not do that at all. C4 should be something that is available on every single class. Same thing with AP Mines and Claymores and Suicide C4. Instead, this is actually more of a suggestion to change just how C4 works. Why is C4 important in Battlebit? Well, it's the best tool to breach and move through maps. There's so many things that you can blow up, and being able to throw C4 on a wall, make a new entryway, and be able to flank and move around your enemies in the maps is really important. And I think actually removing that from, say, the Medic specifically would actually kind of hurt the game a little bit, because that should just be something that every class should have the ability to. Being able to breach and move around. Destruction, again, is just a huge part of Battlebit. A lot of people would say that the maps in Battlebit aren't really balanced correctly, and when you remove C4 from one of the classes, it just kind of fucks up the map flow and the gameplay flow, because guess what? Now you can't move as well as other classes. And frankly, I kind of agree. I think that's a really good opinion. But my biggest personal issue with C4 is that it makes the Engineer more useless. Again, we're talking about class identity here. What is the Engineer? The Engineer is the most important character as an infantryman to deal damage to light and heavy tanks and just vehicles in general. When every single class in the game has C4, which can blow up tanks, that makes the Engineer less identifiable and less important. Some people might say, well, Klean, Engineer has heat rockets and tandem RPGs. They're very good at destroying tanks. Of course they are. But in my personal experience, and as somebody who enjoys playing vehicles a lot, I get blown up by medics with C4 almost 80% of the time in my matches. A lot of you guys might say, well, Klean, everybody should be able to blow up tanks. Fuck tanks. I hate tanks. Fuck tanks. Fuck you, Klean. I hate you. Whatever. But in class-based shooters, when you're playing a medic and you see a tank, you shouldn't be able to do fuck all to it. I don't care what you think. I will die on that hill. I've played a lot of Battlefield, I've played a lot of Squad. When you're a medic in those games, guess what? You see a tank, you have to call the Engineer. Hey, we need tandem rockets. Hey, we need somebody with a shape charge. There's a tank. Help me. I'm a medic. I'm supposed to revive people and heal them, not blow up tanks. That is something that's so important in class-based shooters, is having advantages and disadvantages. It's the whole point as to why a class is a class. It's to fill the gaps that other classes can't, because when you play them all together, you're able to do everything. That's the whole point, again, of class-based shooters. You need each role to fill those spots. And so my suggestion, again, is to just nerf the damage that C4 does to light and heavy tanks entirely. As a combat engineer, I was trained with explosives. I was trained with C4, and I was educated on how to fuck up armor. It was my job. Granted, I was a reservist. I've never had combat experience, nor did I ever have a combat deployment. But what I learned in school was legit. And they taught me that C4 charges do fuck all to an M1 Abrams, or even a T90, or even an IFV. The most that they would do, if anything, is disable the vehicle's movement temporarily. So that actually could be a potential new feature to Battlebit. So since C4 would no longer really be able to do serious damage to a tank, you could instead go throw some C4 near its tracks and disable it temporarily. It could be like maybe a 10 to 30 second debuff, and the tank is just kind of stuck there for a bit. Or maybe you seriously incapacitate its total movement speed, slowing it down and making it a much easier target for those engineers. So at the end of the day, I think that nerfing C4's damage to tanks would overall help the game and make the engineer more identifiable and give them that prowess that they should have on the battlefield as the infantryman who fucks up vehicles. That should be the only class that should be able to do that. Again, when every class can kind of do everything, it hurts the game, in my opinion. Just to cover a couple of things, I know a lot of you guys know I am the liaison for the developers, so I'm like a paid employee. I work for the Battlebit devs. But I'm not a game designer. I'm not a shot caller. I do not influence the decisions of the developers to make changes in this game. I know that's why a lot of you guys get really mad at me, and when I start talking about stuff, you get flashbacks to Escape from Tarkov saying, oh, Klean's in Nikita's ear. He's going to wormwood him and make him change the game to the way he wants and blah, blah, blah. Guys, that was never the case with Tarkov, and that is not the case here either. It's not my job. But it is my job as a content creator to create these discussions and ideas because I love game design philosophy and I love Battlebit. And so I love talking about new potential changes and features that I personally have a problem with to create discussions with you guys in order to improve the experience for us all. A lot of you guys are probably thinking, well, Klean, you're pretty fucking biased, bro. You like tanks and you just don't want to get blown up. You're right. I fucking don't. And I'm pretty pissed off by getting blown up by fucking medics in my tank all the time. It sucks ass. And it makes the tanks feel fucking useless. A lot of you guys might say, well, Klean, tanks are really strong. You can get a ton of kills. No, I know. I've gotten like fucking 80 plus kill games as a tank, like 80-0. No problem. However, it's very map specific. That only really happens on maps like Barca, Sandy Sunset, or Dusty Dew, where you actually have the space to get away from infantry so that people can't get close enough and blow you the fuck up. Even when I'm getting shot at by tandem rockets and RPGs, I can at least kind of recover and move away, smoke and move away and not get shot by rockets. Whereas if you're playing on Frugus or any kind of like urban map like Livono, guess what? Some fucking medic's gonna pop out of a fucking window and blow you up with C4. Happens to me a lot. And I'm sure you guys who play in vehicles have had very similar experiences. Again, I think this change would help the game out a lot, but it also brings up a new suggestion that I have. And it doesn't really have to do much with the core gameplay or class balance of Battlebit, but it's actually more so how you play the game, because there's two types of players I've realized in games like Battlefield and Battlebit. You have the players like me who enjoy big maps, want to fight in combined arms, so we want to fight in vehicles and against them and just have that full experience. And then there's the other players who don't want that at all. They only want to fight infantry, or if at most just deal with a dude on a quad or like a Humvee with a machine gun on it. I personally think the current voting system in Battlebit is pretty shit. It's nice because, you can kind of, democracy and choose what, fucking game mode and map you want. But guess what? Usually what ends up happening is you get servers where it's always conquest and people are always choosing conquest in the same maps, or it's always domination or infantry conquest and it's just like kind of constant infantry fights. That doesn't really cater to both of those parties. So my new suggestion is to change the way that servers actually matchmake and are created in the first place. So for example, if you were to go 64 versus 64, you'd say, I want to queue up for 64-64. But then the game would ask you another question. Do you want to play conquest, big maps, all vehicles, or do you want to play in a server that is domination, infantry conquest focused with no helicopters and tanks? And the only vehicles that you'd face are like Humvees. And then it would create up dedicated servers, which would then cater to both of those types of players. Because right now the game doesn't really do that. A lot of the arguments and opinions people have is just because they don't want to fight a dude in a tank, or they want to, you're like me and you want to be in a tank and, like have that type of constant combined arms fights all the time. And you don't like the meat grinder, small map focus of domination. This way it makes everybody happy because you can just queue up for the server for the game mode that you want to play in. And you can just get that all the time. Or the latter, you get that infantry mode all the time. And so I think creating a new kind of config for how just servers are created in the first place to kind of give these dedicated experiences would cater to all players who want specific types of play styles. So that way you're like, I'm kind of bored of conquest. I want to do infantry conquest now. And you can just go do that. And that server will only have game modes that are voted on that have light vehicles or no vehicles in smaller maps. And then if you were to choose the conquest type of server, you'd have the bigger maps and all vehicles constantly every single time. And it would only be those game modes that have that. I think this would be just a really great option for everybody in the community because, again, there's the two types of people who want to fight in against vehicles and those that don't. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But trying to, go at each other just because you don't like somebody who likes playing in tanks or vice versa, or you're a pussy if you're too scared of a tank or whatever, it's a bit silly. And I think that Battlebit could cater to this. I know community servers eventually, when they do happen, will have this, but they don't have like the same level of security in terms of DDoS protection and stuff like that the main servers have. So again, seeing this on the main server, I think would just be, or just the main server hub in general, would be really awesome. One more suggestion that I have, this is something that I think is talked about, but it's not necessarily highlighted amongst a lot of the community, and that is just grenade spam and rocket spam in general, and like why that happens. So when you die, you spawn in like with 6 heat rockets as an engineer, you shoot your 6 heat rockets, then you die, you don't get revived because, medic's over there healing himself in the corner, he doesn't give a fuck about you. And you respawn, and guess what? You got your 6 rockets again, so you can just go back, shoot your rockets, and have fun, throw your grenades, whatever. A lot of people are pretty frustrated by that. This isn't something that I'm personally frustrated by, but this is something that I have seen a lot in Discord and on the Reddit for Battlebit. is that people get really annoyed by just constant spamming of explosives all the time. And the only reason that's an issue is because whenever you die, you get all your shit back. All your gadgets and all your grenades. So my suggestion is to change the way that primary, secondary gadgets and grenade are resupplied. So if you were to utilize all of your gadgets on a class and then die and respawn, you wouldn't get them back unless you spent squad points to resupply at a airdrop or on a support class. You'd have to play the objective and get enough points to start getting those gadgets again. This way, it would also force the players to realize, oh, I can't really like fuck around with these gadgets and just spam them like crazy and waste them. I need to really pay more attention. I need to be more careful and be more tactical with my decision making with these gadgets. And this will also help with that overall spam of grenades and rockets that a lot of people find very displeasing. This again kind of takes an idea from Squad, whereas in Squad, if you have, say, a tandem RPG, you are a huge threat to tanks. And if you were to die and respawn and have all your tandems again, right, like on a squad rally point or something in the middle of the battlefield, like that's pretty broken and fucks the game up. Granted, that is Squad and Battlebit is a totally different game, but the reason why I compare it to Squad is because Battlebit does take a lot of influence from games like Squad. And so I think changing the resupply for gadgets would actually probably help the game out a lot and also kind of provide a little bit more of a tactical experience. Some people may think that Battlebit isn't like a tactical game like Squad, but it did start as that and eventually kind of turned into what it is today. But it still kind of retains a lot of those hardcore elements. And I would argue that Battlebit is kind of a hardcore shooter for many reasons. Granted, it's very accessible, it's very arcadey, and it's fun and easy to get into, but it still retains a lot of these hardcore elements like really quick TTK, pretty realistic ballistics, you know, class-based systems, and you know, like bleeding and reviving and stuff like that, buddy dragging. And so I think a system like this, again, with changing how resupply works for gadgets could potentially help the game and not necessarily slow things down. I mean, I guess it would kind of do that, but it would just kind of help make people play a little bit more intelligently with their kit and their equipment. If you die and you respawn, of course, you'd still have your primary mags, you'd still have your secondary mags, and your bandies, those would always resupply. However, in the hardcore mode, I think like this system would be great for gadgets or really just all your kit in general. So like you'd have to constantly rely on your squad points to resupply yourself. And even if you were to respawn, you wouldn't get all your shit back. If whatever you use is what you had on your next life. And I just think, again, that would kind of create a much more tactical-esque experience if that would, again, work. This isn't something that I think absolutely needs to happen, and it's just a huge major problem, but I'm only bringing this up because I've seen a lot of people in the community talk about this, and it just kind of got me to thinking. I was just playing with some friends today in Battlebit, and we just kind of were bouncing some ideas around, and you know, they're kind of saying how like, oh man, rocket spam is annoying and grenade spam is annoying, and I was like, oh weird, I've actually read a lot about this by people in the community, and so it kind of got me to thinking, how could that potentially be solved? Because again, I love game design theory, and I love, you know, talking about suggestions that get your guys' brains going and kind of, you know, just get people talking, just because again, it's fun. It's just, and this is also like my content. If you guys aren't new to my streams and my YouTube, like this is just how I am. This is who I am. This is my content. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. Like just, you know, move on to the next video, I guess. But that's really it. So again, I'm really curious to see what you guys think about these new ideas in the comments. Again, a lot of these are rebuttals to that previous video. And I do think that the changes to C4 dealing damage to tanks and changes to the way that server structures work in terms of like 24/7 conquest, big maps, all vehicles, and infantry conquest style modes being separated would actually help the gameplay and the community out a lot, as well as potentially fixing and or adjusting the amount of spam of explosives and rockets that happens in Battlebit in general, requiring players to be a little bit more tactical and smart with them. So thanks for watching the video. If you guys like the ideas, be sure to leave a like on the video, comment, let me know what you think. Again, I'm all about having these discussions, so please let's have one and try and be respectful. You ain't got to be too butthurt. Hopefully I didn't rustle too many jimmies here. And again, just because I work for the devs doesn't mean any of this is gonna, you know, happen guaranteed. So frankly, it's not my job. I'm not a game designer. I'm a liaison. My job is to give them consulting, mainly towards marketing and promoting their game, which I've pretty much already done. So anyway, guys, thanks again for watching the video. I'll see you later. Peace out, take care, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.